This is what makes every avoidant come crawling back. We've all been there. You meet someone who seems amazing, attentive, interested, excited, and just when you start to open up, they pull away. They become distant, less available. Suddenly you're questioning everything. But then, weeks or even months later, boom, a text, a like, a hey stranger, they're back. Why? Because here's the truth. Avoidants come back when you stop being the version of yourself that tolerated their emotional inconsistency. It's not because you begged. It's not because you posted a hot selfie. It's not even because they realized how much they miss you. Not at first. They come back because something shifted. You did. You stopped chasing and they started noticing. Let's get this clear. Avoidants fear intimacy, but they crave connection. When you pull away and start pouring your energy into your own life, your friends, your goals, your joy, they feel that shift in the air. They feel your absence in a way that no text can replicate. This is not about playing games. This is about protecting your peace. Because when someone pulls away, the most attractive thing you can do is not chase them. It's to keep walking like you know your worth. And here's the twist. When you stop giving them the emotional safety net they took for granted, they realize just how much they depended on your presence, even if they never said it out loud. That's when they come crawling back. But when they do, the most important question isn't, will they stay this time? It's, do I still want them now that I've remembered who I am without them? Because confidence isn't about what you attract. It's about what you choose to allow. When someone with an avoidant attachment style pulls away, the natural instinct for many is to try harder. Text more, ask what's wrong, show them how much you care in the hope that they'll come back or open up. But that's exactly the dynamic that keeps the cycle going. Avoidants tend to feel overwhelmed when they sense emotional closeness getting too intense. They interpret intimacy as pressure. And the more you chase, the more they retreat. Ironically, what makes them come back isn't your effort to win them over. It's your decision to stop trying altogether. The moment you stop chasing is when everything begins to shift. You're no longer feeding the pattern of pursuit and withdrawal. You're not offering them the comfort of knowing you're always there, waiting in the wings, ready to forgive, explain, or accommodate. That silence, that space, that emotional absence, you may think they don't notice, but they do. Avoidants aren't emotionless. They're often deeply sensitive, but wired to protect themselves from what they see as emotional risk. So when the person they took for granted suddenly becomes unavailable, it triggers something unexpected: curiosity, regret, and even desire. This is when they start to question what happened. They remember the comfort, the warmth, the steady presence you brought into their life. And now that it's gone, the vacuum becomes noticeable. What used to feel like pressure to them suddenly feels like peace they miss. But it doesn't come from your words or actions. It comes from your absence. Your silence speaks louder than your pleading ever did. When you stop chasing, it also signals that you've stopped waiting for them to meet your emotional needs. That's powerful. It communicates that you've reclaimed your focus and your self-worth. You're not trying to prove your value anymore. They either see it or they don't. And that quiet self-respect is what changes the entire energy of the connection. It disrupts the script they're used to. Person gets close, avoidant pulls away. Person chases, avoidant feels safe in distance. But when you opt out of that game, they're left without the ending they're expecting, and it unsettles them in a way that draws them back in, not because you manipulated them, but because they felt your value by feeling your absence. What they don't realize is that while they were pulling away to protect themselves, you were learning to protect yourself too. And that shift is what makes every avoidant come crawling back. The moment things start to change in any relationship, especially with someone who has avoidant tendencies, is when you change. It's easy to think that they hold all the power because they're the one who pulls away, goes silent, or creates distance. But the truth is, They respond not to your words or explanations, but to your energy. When you're anxiously trying to fix things, constantly reaching out or waiting for a response that never comes, they can feel that energy. It reinforces their sense of control and confirms their belief that they can come and go as they please without consequences. But when you shift that energy, when you stop waiting, stop overthinking, stop trying to earn their attention, they feel it and it unsettles them. This shift isn't loud. It doesn't come from a dramatic message or a "that's it, I'm done" speech. It comes from silence, from emotional neutrality, from living your life without trying to pull them back in. That's when they notice something's different. They may not admit it or even understand it fully, but suddenly the version of you who was always available, always forgiving, always reaching out, that version is gone. And with it, the emotional safety net they once took for granted disappears too. When someone is avoidant, they often rely on the idea that you'll still be there when they're ready, that they can take the space they think they need without truly losing you. But when your energy shifts, when you show up differently, they're forced to confront a new reality. You're no longer playing the same role. You're not waiting at the edge of your seat. You're not checking your phone constantly. You're living, growing, moving forward. This is the kind of change that doesn't need to be announced. It's felt. You become a version of yourself that values your own peace over their patterns. You stop accommodating behavior that leaves you confused or anxious. And when you no longer participate in the old dance, they're left dancing alone. That's when they start to miss what they lost. Not because you demanded it, but because you stopped offering it unconditionally. You are the shift that changes the story, not through force, but through quiet confidence. The dynamic transforms because you did. And they come back not because you chased them, but because you finally stopped. And in that silence, they see your value more clearly than they ever did when you were trying to prove it. People with avoidant attachment styles are often misunderstood. From the outside, they can seem cold, indifferent, or emotionally unavailable. But beneath that surface, they're still human. And like every human being, they have a deep need for connection. The difference is that their connection comes with conditions. It must feel safe. It must feel controlled. And most importantly, it must not feel overwhelming. This creates a confusing paradox. They want love, but they fear the vulnerability that comes with it. So they get close, then pull away. They crave connection, but the moment it feels real, they retreat. Despite what it looks like, avoidants aren't immune to emotional attachment. In fact, many of them feel deeply, sometimes even more than they're willing to admit. But rather than expressing their feelings, they suppress them. They've often learned through past pain, childhood dynamics, or failed relationships that vulnerability leads to loss or suffocation. So they protect themselves by building emotional walls and controlling how much closeness they allow. Yet no matter how high the walls, the need for human connection doesn't go away. It just hides. That's why your absence affects them more than you think. When you were available, showing up consistently, being emotionally open, they felt safe in the knowledge that you'd always be there. But when you pull back, not to punish them, but to preserve yourself, it quietly disrupts that safety. Suddenly, the connection they once took for granted is no longer guaranteed. The space they thought they wanted now feels hollow. And because they still crave connection deep down, the loss of yours hits differently. Avoidants often confuse closeness with danger, but when that closeness disappears, they begin to miss the very thing they feared. They remember the warmth, the attention, the emotional depth you brought. And more importantly, they realize it wasn't something they could find just anywhere. Because despite their need for space, what they truly desire, often secretly, is someone who sees them, understands them, and stays grounded even when they withdraw. But when that person actually walks away, it triggers a panic they didn't expect. That's when they start to reach out again. Not always with clarity, but with subtle attempts to re-establish contact. A text, a reaction to a story, a random "how have you been?" It's not just about curiosity, it's about reconnecting to a feeling they miss. Even if they don't say it, they felt something real with you. And when you're gone, that connection becomes something they want again. Only now they have to be the one to move toward it. When you stop chasing someone who pulls away, it's easy to wonder if you're being cold or playing games. But true detachment isn't about manipulation. It's about self-respect. There's a big difference between withdrawing out of strategy and stepping back to protect your emotional well-being. One is rooted in fear and control. The other is grounded in clarity and confidence. When someone repeatedly pulls away, gives mixed signals, or shows inconsistency, continuing to pursue them isn't love, it's self-abandonment. Not chasing is how you reclaim your dignity and remind yourself that your needs matter just as much as theirs. People often associate stepping back with loss. They think, if I stop reaching out, they'll forget about me. I'll lose them forever. But the truth is, if you chasing them is the only thing keeping them around, then you've already lost something far more important, your power. When you chase, you're reinforcing a dynamic where their distance has more control over you than your own values do. You begin to tolerate behavior that leaves you anxious, unsure, and constantly questioning your worth. That's not love. It's survival mode. Refusing to chase isn't about closing your heart. It's about choosing not to pour into someone who repeatedly shows they can't hold what you're offering. It says, I'm not here to convince you of my value. I already know it. And that kind of quiet certainty is incredibly powerful. It doesn't require long speeches or emotional pleas. Your behavior speaks volumes. It shows you won't reward inconsistency with devotion. You won't keep showing up for someone who disappears whenever closeness makes them uncomfortable. Avoidants are used to people making exceptions for them. They're used to emotional partners trying harder when they pull away. So when you don't, it disrupts the pattern they expect. It forces them to confront their own avoidance rather than escape into it. And ironically, it's in that moment when you do less, when you let go, when you hold your ground, that they begin to feel your absence as presence. They realize the emotional safety you once offered isn't something they can find just anywhere. This isn't about withholding love. It's about offering love where it's mutual, respected, and reciprocated. You're not punishing them by stepping back. You're honoring yourself. And when you do that, you create a powerful shift in the dynamic, one that makes it impossible for them not to notice that something's changed. You're no longer trying to be chosen, you're choosing yourself. When someone who's avoidant comes back into your life, the temptation is to immediately wonder if this time will be different. You might feel a rush of hope. Maybe they've finally realized what they lost. Maybe now they're ready to give what they couldn't before. But here's the truth that often gets overlooked. When they return, the real power is no longer in their hands. It's in yours. Because you've changed. You've lived through the silence. You've rebuilt parts of yourself in the absence of their validation. And now you're not the same person who once tolerated emotional crumbs, hoping they would someday offer more. You no longer need them to choose you. You've already made a choice about yourself, and that changes the entire energy of the situation. Before, you may have felt powerless when they pulled away, like you were constantly trying to earn back their attention, prove your worth, or decode their silence. But now you see it clearly. You understand that being emotionally available isn't a flaw. Wanting consistency isn't needy. And you don't have to apologize for wanting depth, effort, or clarity. So when they come back, it's not about whether they finally miss you. It's about whether they are now capable of showing up in a way that aligns with your standards. Can they communicate honestly? Can they handle emotional closeness without retreating into silence or distance? Are they reaching out because they've grown, or just because they feel your absence and want comfort again? These are the questions you now get to ask, not from a place of desperation, but from a place of discernment. You are no longer seeking permission to be loved. You're evaluating whether what they offer matches the love you're willing to give and now require in return. That's the shift. That's the real power. You're not just reacting to their return, you're deciding if they still fit in the life you're building. And maybe they do. Maybe they've done the work, but maybe they haven't. And now you have the strength to walk away if it still doesn't feel right. You're not waiting to be chosen anymore. You've become the one who chooses. You decide who gets access to your heart, your time, and your energy. And that's what makes this moment different. Their return doesn't define your worth. It highlights your growth, what you allow moving forward. That's where your true power lives. So when we ask, why do avoidants come crawling back? The answer isn't about tactics, tricks, or perfectly worded messages. It's about energy. It's about what happens when you stop trying to fix someone else's fear of intimacy and instead start honoring your own emotional needs. They come back when they feel what they once overlooked: your presence, your peace, your value. But more importantly, you come back to yourself. You remember who you were before you twisted yourself into someone easy to love. You become someone who no longer begs for breadcrumbs, because now you know how to beg your own damn loaf. And maybe they'll return with changed behavior. Or maybe they'll return just to realize the version of you that waited no longer exists. Either way, you're not waiting anymore. You're living. You're choosing yourself every time. And nothing is more magnetic than someone who doesn't need to be chased to be worth the chase. Thank you for listening. Thank you for showing up for yourself, because that's where all real change begins. Whether you've been through this pattern once or 100 times, your story can shift today. You don't have to fix them. You don't have to chase them. You just have to choose you. Take care of your heart. It's not too much. It's not too intense. It's just waiting for someone who won't run from what it deserves. Thank you and goodbye for now. Keep walking forward. They'll catch up or they won't, but you won't be standing still either way.